Hi, this is Prakash, and today I'll be discussing what cloud computing is. I'll be further discussing about service models, deployment models, and security. So let's go on the very first slide, which is cloud computing itself. So what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is basically the on-demand supply of services that can be storage, that can be platforms, that can be infrastructure, and anything over the web by which we can just get the services from it to a particular organization, company, or for individual needs too. So let's go directly on the cloud service models, which are basically SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. So what is SaaS? Is the full form of SaaS is basically software as a service, which is ready to use software which we can go and find on the internet. So I'll be going with the example of SAS as a Google Workspace where we can perform the operations there. So let's go on to the other one, which is PaaS, which is Platform as a Service. It is a development platform, and the basic example is going to be Azure App Service. And moving on to the next one, IaaS, it's Infrastructure as a Service, which is basically a virtual infrastructure. So Amazon EC2 it has its own virtual servers on the internet, so we can use it as a infrastructure. Yeah, those are the models that are going to be included in the cloud computing. So let's go to the other slide, which is the cloud deployment models. So basically, we have four models on cloud, which is public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and a community cloud. And as the name denotes, hybrid cloud is basically the flexibility and secured version which we get from public cloud and private cloud. So public cloud is gonna be for every users or maybe like big companies that they have it's over the internet and anyone can just access and use it. The private cloud is gonna be for a private company such as a hospital has its own servers to keep track of the patient. And then the hybrid cloud is, let's take the same example of a hospital. It's basically like the combination of a public cloud and a private cloud. So on a hybrid cloud, if we take the example of a hospital, so the website is hosted on the internet, which is basically going to be the public cloud, which is on the internet, but the record of the patient is already on the private cloud and it's secure. So if we compare both of them, the private cloud is much more expensive than public cloud as it is more secure, more reliable, and many big companies like Apple, Google, or maybe Samsung uses a private cloud to store their information as it is just owned by a particular company or the organization which is more flexible and more secured. So moving on to the next, which is community cloud, it is shared among multiple. So let's take the example of maybe Kent. Maybe Kent has its branch on Sydney, so maybe both of them can use the same. Maybe both of them are using the same cloud services, or maybe let's take the example of governmental bodies such as immigration department and ATO are using the cloud services. They are a different body, but they are using the same cloud. So it's community cloud. They are just sharing information across and using the same cloud services. So we'll move next on the security issues that are included in SaaS, which is software as a service, which concludes data breaches. Data breaches are like having attacks on the software to gain the information from the software. So the other one is weak passwords. There are insider threats, insecure APIs. APIs are application programming interfaces, and then compliance issues, maybe insider threats. We can just take the example of maybe an insider just giving the information, passing every information, or leaking the information of a particular company to the other company. Let's take example of Apple employee just sharing the information with us, the Samsung company. So to protect to be protected from software as a service, maybe the security issues, the protection can be MFA, which is multi-factor authentication, which may be role-based access control RBAC, which we will be discussing for the back. And there's another encryption and backups are needed for everything. Even if we take the example of IaaS, there's gonna be backup here, but it's not mentioned here. But backup is one of the most important security thing that needs to be uh, that particularly needs to be assessed and monitored. So security is used in IaaS, infrastructure as a service. So there might be misconfigured VMS, which is virtual machines. There can be unpatched OS, which means the operating systems are not updated regularly. There can be data breaches, as we earlier mentioned. There can be DDoS attacks, which is a distributed denial of service attacks, which is like attacking one computer through sending multiple networks together to break down the network. There can be insecure APIs, which we already discussed. And to protect the IaaS, we need firewalls, which every computer has its own, and there needs to be updates, which we discussed on unpatched operating system and misconfigured VMs as well. And there needs to be constant monitoring to be protected from unpatched OS, VMS, maybe, and many more. We can also prevent everything from DDoS attacks, like which we have virtual ports in our computer. We can block that and many more. So let's go to the next slide, which is the authentication and authorization. So authentication is basically verifying who you are, and authorization means what you can use. So if suppose I work in a hospital and I'm a nurse and I work in a hospital, so I won't have much details about the patient, about the every condition of the patient, what surgery he had and everything. Maybe I'll just be provided with the information that I need to know, which falls under authorization. And authentication is if I'm just working in that hospital, I'll be authenticated and checked if I will be eligible to check the authorization, and if I have the access of the particular patient, then I'll be moving further ahead. So what can be the best practices to be prevented from authentication and authorizations are MFA, which is multi-factor authentications, which we use in our mobile devices as well. So the other one is RBAC, role-based access control. On role-based access control, we have multiple roles in a particular company, such as our team doesn't need any information about the project management, so they won't give any access to them. Suppose if a cleaner guy works in a hospital, he doesn't have need to have the access to the nursing wards or the nursing rooms until he needs to clean something. So it's been like basically just giving access to particular departments and particular jobs that needs to be performed by the same team. And least privilege is just giving the access to the just giving the access according to the priority level. So let's go to the last slide, which is the conclusion one. So today we understood what SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS is, and we also learned about the deployment models, which are basically hybrid cloud, private cloud, public cloud, and then community cloud, which were four types. And we also learned about authentication and authorizations, and we also discussed about security in IaaS and SaaS, and it's basically the same for PaaS as well. So everything is combined. Maybe just we are just being protected from the vulnerabilities, and that's it. Thank you, guys.